Hi, my name is Tinara and I will be talking about the early history of boxing.
Boxing is a sport of fighting with fists. In other words, can be also called pugilism, which literally means fist fighting. For centuries, people used their fists to resolve disputes before people thought of organizing such fights as entertainment. There is clear evidence that boxing existed as early as 1500 BC. The enhancement of Egyptian civilizations through the Mediterranean region and the Middle East caused boxing to spread its influence. However, ancient boxing barely resembles the sport we admire today. All fights were carried out on open plots with the spectators forming a living arena. The fight normally lasted until one of the opponents was seriously injured. Although the first boxers primarily fought for glory, the winner was also granted the gold, livestock, or other trophies. Pankration, similar to ultimate fighting, was reportedly invented by the heroes Hercules and Theseus, who fought using a combination of wrestling and boxing. In ancient pastime, pankration was introduced into the Greek Olympic Games in 648 BC and also used in training soldiers. Many different forms of combat were involved, and everything was allowed with the exception of biting and gouging out the eyes of your opponent. The match ended when one of the contestants conceded defeat, was knocked unconscious, or was dead. Unfortunately, death was a regular occurrence that happened during these fights. In the U.S., despite laws against maiming, which is permanently damaging the body, or gouging, the practice continued throughout the backwoods areas of the frontier. Especially in the South, rough and tumble fighting held cultural significance. This was a way for men to express their honor and physicality in their efforts to be victorious. Though this fighting without rules between fellow frontiersmen of equal or similar status, other types of fights were staged at times to highlight social class and race differences.
Hi, I'm Karli. I want to talk about more history of boxing. During the antebellum period, southern plantations of the gentry would often have informal boxing matches between slaves. Wealthy plantation owners would also organize formal boxing contests and pit their slave champion against other slave champions from different plantations of the community. Slave owners often won a good sum of money between these fights. The boxers earned fortunes and bets for their masters. They were given their freedom and moved away from the South so they could ply their fistic trade to better financial advantages. Also during the antebellum period, Irish taverns and boxing clubs in the Northeast became popular sites for young working-class Irish men to sharpen their boxing skills and enjoy beer, gambling, and camaraderie with each other. Approximately 70% of the prize fighters in the antebellum era were Irish or Irish American. Pugilism fostered a rising nationalism in the United States. The sporting fraternity relished the pugilism found in the taverns, gambling institutions, and other facilities of the Victorian underworld. A fighter's courage was challenged by the typical brute of fighting of his opponent, and in contrast to the relatively wholesome self-defense art of boxing or sparring, the prize fighting of the sporting fraternity emphasized not developing health and agility, but gaining pride in victory through the gambling. William Wood estimated the perceived difference between boxing or sparring as a respectable sport and the victorious bare-knuckle practice by the working class and ethnic minority groups of tavern culture. This manly exercise has no necessary connection with the brutal and disgusting exhibitions of the prize ring. An accomplished sparer is as such no more a vulgar bruiser than an elegant penman, is a forger or counterfighter, or a clever gymnast hand over hand in a burglar. Bare-knuckle boxing matches drew spectators from across the spectrum of society. The anti-boxing legislation of the antebellum period meant these illegal boxing matches were staged in the secluded rooms of the sporting fraternities' saloons, in rural locations, or on seafaring vessels in order to escape the notice of legal authorities. Swearing, drinking, gambling, bloody violence, and the pleasure-seeking all emphasize the supposed manliness of the world of boxing. Some boxers and saloon keepers achieved a kind of success in this world of physicality and illegal sport rather than in the rationalized middle-class Protestant world of the work ethic promoted by Victorian leaders.
Hi, I'm Tunde and I will be discussing boxing equipment. Today, we have many different versions of boxing gloves. Usually, boxers wrap their hands in hand wraps which stabilize the fists under the boxing gloves. Speed gloves are lighter vinyl or leather which protect the scrapes when doing light bag work. Bag gloves are heavily padded to protect from striking large punching bags. There are also sparring gloves are used when fighters are practicing and are used to keep each fighter safe. Pro fight gloves are designed to protect both athletes, but are less padded and range from 8 to 10 ounces. They use lace instead of Velcro around the wrist for a more secure fit. In the U.S., pro gloves are usually 16, 12, or 8 ounces. The modern gloves we see today were created in the 1990s. Boxing shorts are also mandatory in competition. Shorts are usually shorter, not exceeding the knee. They are made of light material such as polyester. Pro boxers usually have sponsors or unique designs for their shorts. The shoes boxers wear are a lot like wrestling shoes. They are lightweight and form-fitting, but shaped like a boot. They have to be flexible because boxers must stay on their toes. They are usually made of leather or suede, and newer shoes even have cotton mesh to help decrease the amount of moisture. Boxers are also required to wear mouthpieces. They are usually made of plastic and are boiled and fit to the teeth to protect from losing teeth and brain injuries that occur when getting punched in the face.
Hi, I'm Demetrios, and today I will be talking to you about boxing leagues and terms.
There are a lot of terms associated with boxing, but first, below the belt. Below the belt is an imaginary line from the belly button to the top of the hips where a boxer is not supposed to hit. To hit below the belt is to not behave according to the rules or decency. A bout. A bout is a boxing match consisting of rounds with a 1-minute break. Catchweight. It's a weight mutually agreed upon two boxers. It's when boxers in different weight classes meet in the middle. A catchweight fight is made at the middle of the road weight between the two boxing divisions. A clinch. A clinch is a last resort defensive technique. It's when one boxer holds on to the other to avoid being hit or muffle an opponent's attack. Hook. A hook is an inside power punch. It's a short sideways punch delivered with the elbow bent so the arm forms a sort of a hook. The temple, side of the jaw, ribs, or liver is the target. Jab. The jab is the busiest punch in boxing. It's a punch thrown quickly with your leading hand straight from the chin in direct line to your target. Pound for pound. Pound for pound, or P for P, means the best boxer overall based upon his or her boxing skills, whatever the weight may be. Pound for pound rankings compare boxers regardless of weight by using criteria such as boxing records, percentage of wins, by knockout, and level of competition to determine who is the better boxer. A rubber match. The rubber match is the deciding match in a series of fights between two boxers where each boxer has won a fight against the other. Rubber match usually refers to the third fight in a series, a trilogy. It's seen as the match that determines which boxer is really the best. Southpaws are left-handed fighters, or unorthodox. They put their right foot forward, jab with their right hand, and throw punches with their left hand. To a normal right-handed fighter, a southpaw's punches are coming from the wrong side. When a right-handed and left-handed boxer fight each other, their lead foot is almost on top of the other person's. Southpaws aren't always born left-handed. Some are converted southpaws. A straight right. A straight right is considered a power punch. If you are a right-handed boxer, it's a straight right. If you are a left-handed boxer, it's a straight left. TKO, or technical knockout. A boxer that loses by technical knockout is when the referee intercedes and stops the fight, declaring them unable to continue because of bad cuts or bruises, and they cannot go on to defend themselves. Unanimous decision. A unanimous decision occurs when all 3 judges agree on a winner. Uppercut. Uppercuts are thrown at close range. The jaw or the solar plexus is the target. It's an in-fighter's best weapon. Weigh-in. The weigh-in is a pre-fight ceremony where boxers are weighed to make sure they are within the limits for their weight classes and contracted weight for the fight. Where most boxers get their beginning is amateur boxing. These are bouts that occur in short duration and fighters wear head protection, and the winner is judged off the amount of clean punches landed. Some of the leagues best known for amateur boxing include Golden Gloves and USA Boxing, where there are regional tournaments and then a national competition annually. Many professional boxers go through these leagues on their way to becoming a main event boxer. Next for boxers comes the professional boxing leagues. The 4 governing bodies of prize fighting include the World Boxing Organization, World Boxing Council, World Boxing Association, and the International Boxing Federation. Each of these leagues have champions for each weight class, and that's how some fighters are able to obtain multiple championships, although the weight class remains the same. A different type of league that has many of boxing's techniques is the UFC. In 1993, Ultimate Fighting Championship was founded, which is now the largest mixed martial arts company in the world. UFC includes many different fighting disciplines including boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Sambo, wrestling, karate, and judo. When fighters begin to use more than one technique, the style is known as mixed martial arts. When UFC first began, it often included fights with no weight class and fighters would have major disadvantages. At UFC 3, Keith the Giant Killer Hackney faced Emmanuel Yarbrough with a 9-inch height and 400 pounds weight disadvantage. When 170-pound Royce Gracie won 3 of the first 4 events, the UFC proved that size does not determine the outcome of the fight. During this time, UFC ambassadors such as Roy Gracie, Ken Shamrock, and Patrick Smith were among those who helped the organization rise in popularity. In UFC's earliest days, the sport lacked many rules, and before broadcast, a disclaimer would be featured warning audiences of the nature of the sport. During this time, the only rules enforced were biting and eye gouging, but everything else was legal. The violent nature of the sport drew immediate attention from U.S. officials. Senator John McCain saw a tape of the first UFC events and found it disgusting. McCain led a campaign to ban UFC, as he called it, human cockfighting. He sent letters to governors of all 50 U.S. states asking them to ban these events. In response to criticism, the UFC increases cooperation with the induction of new rules. UFC 12 saw the introduction of weight classes and banning of fish hooking. For UFC 14, gloves became mandatory and kicks to a downed opponent were banned. After a few years of struggle, UFC became a mainstream event, and fighters such as Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture were a huge part of this success. Pay-per-view numbers began to boom with UFC 52, and since then, ratings and viewership has continued to boom. Many famous boxers have also made ventures into other leagues, such as the WWE, when Mike Tyson made a guest appearance at WrestleMania 14, in which he made $3 million. This eventually landed Tyson a spot in the WWE Hall of Fame. Also, in WrestleMania 24, undefeated boxing champion Floyd Mayweather was featured in a headlining match against the 500-pound Big Show, in which Floyd Mayweather took the fight. Although professional wrestling is staged, boxing has made a huge impact on this type of entertainment.
Hi, I'm Mike Cardinelli. Today I'm going to be talking about the impact boxing has had on America, as well as America's impact on boxing. Whether it's gambling, political aspirations of men, civil rights, or popular culture, there is no doubt the two have influenced each other in a major way. Boxing has been constant since the Civil War, paving the way for men to fame and fortune, in a way where opportunities were scarce, as well as creating a stage to show that all men, regardless of skin, ethnicity, or social class, are on an equal playing field. The impact on America is huge. Social mobility was common during early boxing. Boxing made it easy for all people of ethnic groups to gain fame. Irish, Black, Polish, Italian, and Jewish champions were prominent in the sport during the Progressive Era. This allowed for more social mobility among the classes, as people of all backgrounds were welcome to try and gain wealth and fame so long as they were skilled enough. Race relations during the late 1800s were rough, to say the least. African Americans claimed many boxing champions early on, though many whites refused to fight the blacks. First championship won by a black fighter was by George Dixon in 1890. Though the African Americans had gained prominence, White people still believe them inferior due to the lack of heavyweight champion. That changed when the Electric Jack Johnson won the heavyweight championship in 1908. With African Americans winning titles, it challenged the white supremacy notion. That led to the search for a great white hope. The search led to Jim Jeffries, an unbeaten retired fighter. The fight was considered epic as 20,000 spectators rushed to see the fight. With Johnson winning decisively, the belief in white supremacy was dealt a huge blow. While African Americans celebrated, whites rioted in anger, beating and lynching many. The riots led to 11 dead and 74 injured nationwide. Race relations were temperamental, to say the least. This was further proven by the treating of boxing legend Joe Louis. Though he served in World War II and held many exhibition matches to raise morale and support war bonds, after the war he was sued for back taxes and was forced to be a doorman for the remainder of his life. Boxing has had a giant influence on popular culture. In movies, there are many boxing films. Rocky is an underdog story that throughout its series brings up many issues in the boxing world, such as a Philly underdog beats a champ. A champion continues his reign by fighting chumps only to defeat his biggest challenge yet. Rocky must fight a monster of a Russian in the late stages of Cold War. Outside of movies, pay-per-view is very common nowadays. Pay-per-view changed boxing in many ways. 1. People were able to pay $30 to $60 around the world to see the biggest fights that included the biggest stars such as Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, George Foreman, Lennox Lewis, Manny Pacquiao, and Floyd Mayweather. The money being pulled in, especially recently, just reached $150 million for an event that included Floyd Money Mayweather. America has impacted boxing in many ways as well. Many boxing heroes were involved in politics. Sports heroes have impacted America throughout the 20th and 21st century, and boxing has had its fair share. The fights in the early to mid-20th century often had political backdrops that added to the suspense. Some examples include Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum versus Adolf Hauser. With Hitler's rise, the idea of Aryan perfect race was challenged through sports, particularly head-to-head sports like boxing. The Aryans took a particularly heavy blow when Jewish American Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum defeated Germany's Adolf Hauser. After, Hitler banned head-to-heads between Jews and Germans. Further political backdrops include Jack Dempsey versus Gene Tunney, a fight between the lower and upper class. The fight drew mass appeal as over 120,000 attended the fight, while millions listened feverishly on the radio. When Tunney won, the outcome of a rematch was inevitable. More than 104,000 packed Soldier Field, playing more than $2.6 million. The biggest celebrities and politicians contributed to the crowd. A 73 radio station broadcasted to nearly 50 million listeners. Dempsey nearly knocked Tunney out, but a rule change allowed Tunney extra time to gather himself. The outcome seemed to align with the working class who felt cheated by corporate America. Lastly, one of the most politically active fighters was Muhammad Ali. Ali is considered by many to be the greatest boxer of all time, but he was more than a boxer. Ali was an idol when social change was rampant. When he defeated Sonny Liston in 1964, then as Cassius Clay, he changed his name and joined the black Muslim faith. This was completely against the grain, as most people saw the group as a threat to America. He was then indicted for evading the draft in 1967, claiming conscientious objector due to religious beliefs. While fighting the indictment, boxing associations banned him and stripped him of his title. Instead of falling to conformity, he continued to fight the indictment, placing his values above fame and fortune. Ali was not alone in his discontent for the Vietnam War. The widespread counterculture that was sweeping the nation was certainly on his side. Though he was righteous, he spent his physical peak outside of the boxing ring, not shying away from America's biggest issues of the way at the time. He was finally rewarded in 1971 when the Supreme Court overturned the 1967 ruling. Ali staged one of the greatest comebacks of all time, as he had some of the all-time greatest fights with Joe Frazier and George Foreman.
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!